First announcement, if you are going to Layer 1 through us, then please, Crizzles has some paperwork that we need you to sign, and we need to turn that in quickly, so it'd be cool if we could get that signed today. Also, this Friday, we're having Tech Symposium. So, Tech Symposium is our annual technology and industry night. So basically, we're going to have some speakers come out and give more technical presentations on a variety of upcoming, mostly, I think this year it's all software. So we have 3 speakers. We have Dr. Rich. He's going to be rehashing his talk on elliptic curve cryptography. So that should be really exciting. I know there's been some advancements in the field since he gave that talk 2 years ago. And it was good 2 years ago, so it should be fantastic now. Dr. Sierra Jaspin is going to be coming out. She's going to be speaking on her static analysis framework that she calls Crystal. And then Garrett D'Amore, who is one of the lead developers for Illumos, he did a lot of work with ZFS. So he's going to be speaking on ZFS. And that's this Friday from 6 to 9. I'll have to double check that, but the times are on the website. And then we're going to have Chick-fil-A there. So I think we got one house salad for Mondays. So. Also, June 1st, we are going to be having a alumni fundraising dinner. So that should be really exciting. We're going to, I think, we haven't confirmed the location yet, but we're going to try to have it at BJ's. So that should be really cool. We're going to get a private room and meet with the alum, and we're going to talk about the direction of Swift and some of the cool things that we can do in the upcoming year. So that should be really exciting. With that, I'm going to introduce to you our speaker. So this week we have Beith, and he is Pure Beith, and and he is with Boeing. I'll let him introduce himself. So,
all right, thanks, Zach. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for the chance to come talk to you guys a little bit. I know a little bit about your organization from a number of folks that we hired in Boeing a couple years ago that were part of your group and worked on some of the cyber challenges and some of the competitions. And I understand you guys did really well again this year. Is that right, Zach?
Yes.
Good stuff. But then some of the guys were telling me that they are no longer authorized to help you because they're now actually, employed and getting paid, and so working with you guys, I guess, in the competitions, maybe some of the competitors think that's unfair. But I wanted to just take a couple of minutes this morning. I think about 12:45, right? That's sort of the cutoff time. So I wanted to give you a little bit of perspective from the business side. So a little bit about me. So I'm a mechanical engineering graduate, and you're thinking, what's a mechanical engineer doing leading an information security solutions business? And then so I got my ME degree from Michigan State University. Then I got my MBA from Claremont Graduate University just down the road here. And so I kind of took a strange path that I'm going to tell you a little bit about in a little model. I'll call it a sort of a business career development model that I offer for your consideration. But I thought I'd give you a perspective from a company like Boeing. What do we see in this particular market? What are the things that we're challenged by? Which one of these buttons do I want to hit?
You should display unmute.
Here we go. Got it. All right. So this is the perspective, and this was actually a study that we had done by the McKinsey Group, which is one of these high-priced consulting firms that we pay money to go off and figure out all of this stuff. And if any of you have ever worked with consultants, kind of the way they work is they come and interview you and ask you a bunch of questions about what you think, and then they do a really good job of what you told them, put that into a report and say, here's the in-depth analysis that we've done. And you look at it and you say, well, this is what I told you. We're really looking for something new. But that's kind of how consultants work. So as you guys graduate and decide to go to consulting businesses, it becomes really important to understand, how do you actually interview people and just tell them what they think, because then, then they're really going to like what you say. And maybe that's just human nature. But here's how we look at our business. So no surprises to any of you, I'm sure. So the big deal here is data proliferation, right? So it's not a question of not enough data. The problem for us in the security business and those of us that are also in the information advantage business, is that there's just way too much data, right? So if you know this better than I do. So if there's too much data, how do you find the needle in the needle stack, right? That's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. So these are the things that are really pressuring, companies like Boeing. We do a lot of business with the U.S. government. We do a lot of business internationally, obviously in our airplane business as well. So that's one of the toughest challenges that we have. So as you think about what you're doing in your studies and your competitions, for us in business, it's how do we deal with these massive amounts of data. So things you can do to create an advantage for a company, for an organization, if you go into business for yourself, but that's one of the key elements. The persistent and asymmetric security threats, right? So a couple $100 laptop, an internet connection, some creative websites that you guys, I'm sure, are well aware of, and off you go, right? You can be part of Anonymous, you can be working for other organizations who may, hopefully you don't end up this way, but may have some less than noble causes of things they want to go do. The other big challenge for companies like Boeing, right, so we are an intellectual property-based company, right? The value of Boeing, besides the stock value, is what we own in information, in the intellectual property. So we're an IP-based organization. That's the value of the company. And of course, all our IP now is all stored on servers and clouds and so forth. So guess what? It'd be no surprise to think that some countries, maybe a country like China or Russia, countries that find it a lot easier to go in and hack into your network, steal your intellectual property, not so much because of a criminal intent, because think of the advantage that they can get by not having to invest in new technology if they can just steal your technology. So I was over in Singapore a couple months ago at the Singapore Air Show, and there was this huge display by a Chinese aircraft company. Now they haven't built airplanes yet, but you look at all those airplanes and they look an awful lot like the Boeing airplanes, right? And about 20 years from now, China is going to be a huge competitor for a company like Boeing in the commercial airplane business, right? And if you look at our airplanes today, the new 787 as an example, it's the first E-enabled airplane. And so one of my groups, we had the responsibility for doing the penetration testing to get FAA certification on this brand new airplane. And the interesting thing about that was the FAA didn't know how to certify an E-enabled airplane. So that was one of the things that we had to do at Boeing is we had to work through the FAA and teach them how to certify an airplane. And not that we knew how to do it either, we kind of had to figure it out along the way. But as these airplanes become more vulnerable with the ground systems, with the online entertainment systems and so forth, they give people access, adversaries access, that could compromise a company like Boeing. So imagine if you could take control of an airplane, fly it into a building, fly it into the ground. Imagine what that would do to the economic value of the Boeing company, right? If you think back to the 9/11, I mean, the Boeing stock, almost went in half as a result of that. So huge economic impacts when you think about the threat. Rapid adoption of mobility, right? So I'm sure you all have smartphones. The Boeing issue, BlackBerry. So why do we pick BlackBerry instead of the Apple iPhone? It's still the best commercial security that you can get is the BlackBerry. Is it user-friendly? It's a little bit more user-hostile probably than an iPhone. But I get my email, I can make my phone call, I can do a text. That's about all I need to do. I'm not as sophisticated as you guys. But it's mobility. So how do you make sure that everything is secure? Right? We're traveling more. We carry laptops. I travel to Singapore as an example. I'm bringing my Boeing BlackBerry. I'm bringing my Boeing laptop. So the key thing is the things I carry on those devices, how do I make sure they're protected? Right? Not something I'm going to go figure out how to do, but our IT organization and our security organization, that's what they're going to go figure out how to do. So rapid mobility, everybody's got it. That's where the technology is going. Consumerization of IT, right? If you're going to build a fighter jet, an F-15 for the U.S. Navy as an example, an F-18 for the U.S. Navy, who's going to invent the technology to make those things go, right? The U.S. Department of Defense is going to spend billions of dollars inventing that technology because there's a pretty small market for fighter jets, right? But if you're going to go and build an information security system, and you're going to build a secure phone system, who's going to drive that technology? It's not the Boeing company. It's not the U.S. Department of Defense, right? It's the commercial. It's the Apples of the world, right? Those are the companies that are driving technology. So in the old days, you could always rely on these huge contracts from the government to make, a decent amount of money. Typically, we get a 10% return on sales and working with the U.S. government. But I bet Apple is getting a lot more than 10% return on sales on their IT and their iPhones and iPads, right? What do they got, like $100 billion or something like that in cash that they're sitting on? I mean, that's bigger than the value of the Boeing company itself. So that's one of the interesting things for us. And as you think about what you're doing, I mean, you are the innovators of the future for the Boeings, for the U.S. government, and for us as the consumers, right? So that's a real different challenge for us that we have to understand. So the other thing we worry about is if we're going to go put a signal processor, for example, on an airplane, where do those chips and parts come from? China, right? Do you think China might be interested in maybe putting a back door into some of that software or some of those chips, right? So those are things we worry about. That's called the supply chain. And so, so the consumerization of IT, we're using commercial kind of products as a defense kind of a contractor and serving the U.S. government. Those are things that we have to worry about. So we have to hire people that understand the intricacies of the technologies, that's able to go and cover and discover what some of those backdoors, what some of those adversaries are thinking about. So things you do in your competitions, those are exactly the kinds of skills that we need to go address some of the threats and protect against some of the adversaries that are specifically attacking the Boeing company. So government effectiveness and efficiency. Another key challenge is as there's more data, more information, it takes more time to deal with it. And guess what? If you've watched the papers, if you track it at all, you see that budgets are at best flat, if not somewhat declining, right? There's too much money being spent and not enough income. It's that whole is income or tax, depending on what side of the fence you are on politically. But the big challenge is you have to be more efficient. So things that you are working on, that you can create solutions that create efficiency. So if I have an information security business, as an example, or if I'm the CISO at the Boeing company, I might say have 500 people that are working. I think Boeing's about 500 people in our CISO organization. And I might have, say, 25 people that are working forensics. And if I can develop tools and techniques to help those forensic analysts, keep those 25 people, but the challenge, the threat, the data is getting worse and worse, the tendency is I want to hire more people. But my CISO, he's got a budget constraint. He can't hire more people because he's going to drive the cost of doing business in the Boeing company. So as you think about developing efficiencies and tools, that's going to make those forensic analysts, as an example, far more efficient, far more effective, so you can do more with the same number of people. Those are the things, I mean, that's what's going to win out in today's world and in the future world. So developing those kinds of technologies, those kinds of capabilities, those kinds of analytics, that's what's going to win out today. And then lastly, it's a shift in the business model. It used to be, on the government side, and it's also true somewhat on the commercial aircraft side, it used to be that the government would just buy systems, and we love to build stuff and deliver stuff and let them operate the stuff. Well, guess what? Because of the consumerization and because of the rapid turn, in other words, how quickly something becomes obsolete, the government doesn't want to own a lot of equipment anymore. They'd rather buy it as a service. So where we used to deliver a lot of product, now we buy the product, we carry the risk as a company, and we're just delivering a service to the government. So it's kind of the classic Xerox model. You can have the copier for free, you just got to keep buying the ink and the paper and so forth. Well, in the IT business, there's an analogy to that, right? We're not going to go buy all the systems and tools and technologies to do. For instance, I'll use the forensics again as an example. Some companies, some organizations, some governments are just buying that as a service. So I'm going to ship you all my data, I'm going to ship you all my events, but you're going to do all the analysis and give me a report. So those are some of the opportunities that we have ahead. So we at the Boeing company, we're trying to figure out, how do we take advantage of that? Well, we're not a forensics house. I mean, we do it because out of necessity for our own network, but we're not in the business of selling those kinds of services. And so for us, we're really at a transition point in how do we change the way we do business from really what's been a large product kind of an organization to become a service organization. And I'll tell you, we're still trying to figure it out. And the business that I run specifically, I'm trying to figure out how to be a service company. So figure out, how do I become a service company in a product organization is a really difficult thing. And so that's one of the challenges that I have in front of me. But one of the things I wanted to introduce to you, I assume I can erase this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is my model for how to think about your career development. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. All right, so in this corner, we got the workers, could be engineers, could be, IT specialists or whatever. And on this side here, we've got the CEO of the company. And the size of this box depends on the size of the company, right? If you're a one-person consulting firm, you're the worker and the CEO. If you're the Boeing company, you could be an entry-level security analyst, or you could be a CEO. Boeing, interestingly enough, actually has 3 CEOs. We have a CEO of the company, we have a CEO of our commercial aircraft company, and we have a CEO of our defense businesses. But nonetheless, so workers and CEO. All right. Then we got influence and control. Right. So on this map, who do you think has the most control in a company? CEO. Everybody agree CEO? Anybody disagree? All right, I disagree. I will submit to you that the workers, you have the most control. How much code is the CEO going to write in the company? 0. So who's got control? The guy writing the code or the CEO? Right? Who has the most influence in the company? CEO. Right? He can decide the strategy of the company. He can decide who to hire in the company. He can decide who to get rid of in the company. Right? He can make lots of decisions that are based on influence, but he's not going to write one lick of code. Right? So the CEO is down here in control. Okay. All right. So let's look at risk. Okay. We got low risk. We got high risk. Okay. Who takes the most risk in the company? CEO. CEO. Everybody agree, CEO? All right. CEO's right here. I mean, as a worker, right? I mean, you take some level of risk, right? It's the risk of driving down the 57 freeway, those kinds of risks, right? If something goes bad on a program, who gets fired? Not the guy writing software, it's the CEO or program manager, right? So from a risk scale, right? Who's right here?
Team lead.
Middle management, right? Anybody shoot guns or rifles? What do you call that?
Bullseye.
Bullseye, right in the crosshairs, right? That's middle management. Okay? That's me right there. I'm right square in the middle of that. And again, the size of the company, again, will decide, the separation between each of these points. Right? So let's talk about, at the end of the day, I mean, we love doing what we're doing, and the best advice I ever got was follow your passion. Follow your passion. Sometimes that might lead you to make lots of money. Sometimes you might not make a lot of money, but you're really going to enjoy what you're doing. Ideally, you can make lots of money and really enjoy what you're doing, if that's what you like to do. Okay? So from a reward standpoint, right, I mean, there's no doubt, right, that the CEO is going to make the most money, right? So if you think about this from a reward standpoint, that's the CEO. Okay? We have a CIO in our presence. We can plot where the CIO fits on here as well. But let me offer you, so as you start your career, right, down here, we'll start down here. And I would argue that the way, now in a small company it's going to be a little bit different, but if you think of a large company like a Boeing or even probably an Apple or companies like that, okay, you're going to start working your way up this path, right? And the way to get to any of these other spots is through the middle, right? So this might, for instance, be the CIO. I would say the CIO has a lot more control than the CEO, right? And that's, in a corporation, the CIO makes a good wage, doesn't make the same kind of money as the Boeing company. So the CEO of Boeing, as an example, last year, I think he only made like 22 million or something like that. Only. And the CIO probably made somewhere in the million, maybe a little bit less than $1 million. Kind of depends on his incentive compensation. But nonetheless, it's typically a much higher reward than the employees here, right? So the rewards go through the middle. So as you think about your career, and if you think about a career in a large or medium-sized kind of company, I would submit that it's going to go through the middle. And so as you plot your career as to which way you want to go, right, whether you're going to go the CEO route, you're going to go the CIO route, you could probably put something like a CTO up here as well. So this is, I guess I'll copyright. This is just Pierre's philosophy. It's not the philosophy of the Boeing company. So I've got 29 years of working in Boeing. I had the benefit of starting as an intern, getting a summer job, which was the best thing I did. And I think with the kind of things that you guys are doing, and hopefully you guys are all getting internships as well, you learn an awful lot. And what put me in this path here. At a company like Boeing, okay, I know I'm never going to be that guy. And there's kind of some bands around here in terms of what I can do after 29 years of the company. The other interesting thing in the company is when I look at you guys, I mean, you guys are, and I know you know this, right? I mean, you're the future of any company. For the first time in my career, 29 years, I now work for somebody younger than me. In fact, I think it's about 8 or 9 years younger than me. And that's a really strange feeling, because I've always been kind of the young guy and the go-to guy, and man, Pierre's gonna, you know, he's rising, right? He's climbing this curve, right? Well, guess what? After 29 years, I'm gonna be somewhere in here. I might maybe make a little more path that way, but that's about it. So that's my offer to you today, is to think about, you know, how are you going to plot your career? And I would offer that you think about, you know, pick some different elements of the axes. What, you know, for you. And as you think about where you want to go, you can kind of plot a career path. So to go from here to here in Boeing, was 29 years. One guy who's the CEO of our Boeing defense business went from here to that job, which is the high reward job, in about 20 years. Right? So I'm not as good as him, but that's okay. I do okay. I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. So lastly, I'll leave you, and then I'll take some questions for you. Hopefully you have some. So this is just my perspective, purely my perspective again. I have to throw these disclaimers in, otherwise, you know, Boeing will want some. Okay. So top 10 reasons to stay in school. Free pizza. Right? So I'm telling you, don't graduate. These are the 10 reasons why. I forgot to ask. Everybody knows what David Letterman is, right? You guys probably don't watch him, but. So this is with some respect to Mr. Letterman. So top 10 reasons to stay in school. Free pizza. Okay. Starbucks, much better office than cubicles. Anybody here work at Starbucks? Not work there, but do your homework there? Sometimes. Yeah. Okay. Where do you guys go normally? Where's this come from?
Library.
Library. Game room. Swift meetings. All right. I should have spent more time with Jared talking about these. He did give me the number. He did give me the number 1. Okay. Shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops every day. I mean, life is good. I just picked up my son Sunday morning. He just finished his freshman year he's got a tough place. He's at the University of Hawaii. And he shows up in his shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops. I think he's going to follow these rules and stay in school. No one cares if you sleep in. Is that true? I mean, it's up to you, right? I mean, professor, you're either here or not, right? You've paid your dues, so he's going to teach or she's going to teach. Okay? Student poverty means you never have to pick up the tab, right? Is that true? I mean, it's not like if you're out with a bunch of friends, everyone probably chips in, right? Or if you're out with any, you know, real working stiffs like me, you know, you feel guilty and we pick up the tab. You never got to pick up the tab when you're in school. Better than that. 3 months summer break. You guys got a couple, 3 weeks. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah.
Before finals. And then you get to kick back for 3 months. Some of you probably take summer classes, but I don't get 3 months off. So after 29 years, I do get 4 weeks of vacation and 12 holidays. So that's still a lot. But it's not 3 months in a row. You control your own destiny, right? You decide what you want to be, where you want to go, who you want to be with. Not me, man. Once you get into the job, once you get into the corporate culture, you work for the man. The man controls your destiny. So down here, again, you have a lot more control as well as to what you want to do. When you get into here, I can't just go look on the Boeing web to say, hey, there's a cool job. I think I'll go do that. Doesn't work that way when you get into middle management. They tell you what your next job is. So you want to go from worker to CEO as quick as you can. I don't know if it's true for all of you. It wasn't true for me when I was in college. But parents keep paying the bills. Life's good. Whatever they pay. All right? Beer pong. I don't play beer pong. So, oddly enough, I noticed when I came in, there was a screen up that had a particular brand up there. But the number one reason, according to my Cal Poly graduates at the Boeing company, but then I noticed when I came in here, it's Windows, right? We're running Windows and PowerPoint and all that kind of stuff here. Although Jared tells me that he doesn't run Windows at home, he runs Linux. So, all right, that's my spiel. Trying to make it quick and leave a little bit of time for questions from you all. And I will answer any question that I can. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to make it up or tell you I just don't know. Yep.
So generally, I view myself as a technical person. I'm getting a technical degree, and then oftentimes technical people are at odds with the business people. And
At odds in what ways?
Well, we come from very different perspectives, perhaps, is what I've seen. And so you started off with an undergraduate in mechanical, and then you went and got your MBA,
Yep.
your master's in business.
Yep.
So, in your both academic and then your career, how did you feel the pull between the technical and the business?
For me, it was really easy. Remember I said, follow your passion. And as I look back, I was never really passionate about engineering. But I was really passionate about, I love technology. I love widgets. I love stuff. I love playing around in the garage and doing things. Right? But I really like the business side of it. How do you make money? What's driving the cost of building something? Right? But I want to be working in a business environment that's doing cool stuff. I mean, what's cooler than a 787 airplane? Right? And what's cooler than a fighter jet? We build these underwater vehicles that I used to run that business a few years ago. Really neat technology, but I just realized I'm not, I don't have the giant technical brain. What I really love and I'm passionate about is the business. So figure out what you're passionate about, what's best for you. And so, as I mentioned, you could be the CTO, right? If you want to go that path to the CTO, follow that path. But it's whatever the path is for you. But really do some soul searching. And your first job out of school, you don't have to soul search anything. You just got to get a job and start making some money. It's going to take a while to figure it out.
What do you think the biggest challenge is for any incoming, any graduating college student coming into Boeing or a company like Boeing?
The biggest challenge, I think, I'm trying to think of what Tim and Jeff and Jared and those guys would say. I think the biggest challenge is probably the cultural change. You come to work for a company like Boeing, and there's some rigors and some policies. We kind of work an 8 to 5 schedule, although as salaried employees, you're not getting paid by the hour. And so less flexibility, I think, is one of the challenges. I think the other challenge is, the paycheck is great. I think a starting salary at Boeing, at least for engineering degrees, or north of 60, maybe 70, 80 grand, something like that. So pretty good kind of starting salaries. But I think the challenge for me, let me answer it this way. My challenge when we hire college students in is to find challenging, enriching work for you to be engaged and be excited. Because the flow, at the end of the day, we got to make money, and it's based on what programs we bring in from our customers. And programs have life cycles. On the front end, you're doing a whole bunch of system engineering and requirements definition before you actually start doing any code. For those kind of development programs, which can be really boring. but great experience. And so it's working through that life cycle of a program. Now, if you move into, for instance, the IT organization and the CISO organization, there I think you kind of go in and you hit the ground running. I mean, I think there you're going to get a lot closer, you know, for instance, if you're into forensics as an example, malware, reverse engineering, those kinds of things. You're going to get a lot closer to doing those kinds of things right out of the gate than you would in a development kind of program, a profit and loss business that I run. So the way to think about a business is there's a profit and loss organization. You either work in profit and loss, hopefully profit, or you're a cost center. And so the IT organization, they cost money, right? They don't make a single dime for the Boeing company, they cost money. And so I, as a profit and loss center, I have to pay for their salary. That comes out of the programs and business that I bring in. But sort of, you know, you got to figure out what part of a company you best want to fit in.
So basically getting them into that culture, whatever else.
Yep. But I think even, I mean, large companies like Boeing, you know, have a very methodical kind of culture. We say, oh, we're really innovative, and you know, we really like diversity, which we do, and we are, but we're not innovative like Apple's innovative. It's a slower sort of development cycle.
Yeah. External to strictly technical competencies, how to code, and knowledge of data structures, stuff like that, what skills would you say are most valued as an incoming applicant to, say, Boeing?
What skills are most valued? Attitude. One of the best books that I've read is a book about customer service, and it's a book about Nordstrom, right? Famous for customer service. And they have a philosophy about hiring people. Hire the attitude, train the skill. And I'm an absolute firm believer in that. Hire the attitude, train the skill. Now that doesn't mean you can hire anybody and train them to be, you know, to be an engineer, right? I mean, they got to have some fundamental engineering skills, but attitude, have the right attitude. That's the thing that we look for most today. That's the thing that'll differentiate you from everybody else, right? Assuming you've got good solid skills. I mean, there's no substitute for good grades, right? But I wasn't the best student. I was just looking at it the other day because I had to turn in a form for my AAA auto insurance. I was changing insurances. Well, you get a discount in AAA if you're a mechanical engineer or any other kind of engineer. So they wanted proof that I was an ME. So I sent them my old transcripts, and I look, I go, God, I wasn't as good a student as I remember. But I did graduate, and I had a job. So attitude, really, that's, I would say it's critical. Maybe not the answer you were looking for.
Well, that's exactly what I was after. Thank you.
Anyone else? I know you got a burning question. Anybody know Socrates? Or what do they call it? Socratic method of holding group discussions. So do you agree with my answer, attitude? Does that sound logical to you?
Yeah. Geez, if someone doesn't have a good attitude, they're not willing to learn or whatever, you can't teach them, they can't grow with the company or do the company any good.
What would number 2 be? What was it?
Teamwork.
Teamwork. Okay. Say more about that.
If you don't have a good attitude, you're not willing to work with other people. And like a lot of companies, like they look to put you in a team so that you can work with other people. Because oftentimes this can't be just one person that can do all the work. You need to cooperate with other people. So,
I was going to say, that's what's so great about what you guys do in this group and doing these competitions. So when we hired, I think we hired seven of the team into Boeing a couple of years ago. Now, 2 of them are left, the others have found other jobs, which is fine. And we sort of expect a certain level of attrition. But the cool thing was they came in, they had a sort of a natural leader, which was Peter Spring, I think it was at the time. They had a natural leader of the group. They already knew how to interact. And so for us to decide, hey, let's hire the whole team because we can save so much cost of building up the skill and the capability of people working together. It's absolutely foundational, right? I mean, we've all heard the over-analytical guy who likes to just sit in his office and just communicate by email. Email is the bane of my existence. I mean, I get probably 200 emails a day. So I have a rule. I'll share with you my rule of email. If you get an email, you can respond by email. Two emails is a phone call. 2 phone calls, face-to-face visit. And don't carry on a debate over email, only with the people that have an interest in the debate. The rest of us just tell us the outcome when the debate's over. I'd like to see us charged for email. I think that will help. Email. Other thoughts or questions? Yeah.
What's been your favorite part of working for Boeing?
Well, you know, it kind of gets to attitude and team. It gets to, I mean, there's no substitute for the great people that you work with and the great people you surround yourself with. So as a leader, right, so this guy's stuck in the crosshairs here, the target, right? I don't know anything. I know how to use a computer. I know how to use a BlackBerry. Okay, I've learned a little bit about information security, but it's just surrounding myself with people smarter than me about certain things, right? And so surround yourself with people that are different than you too, right? If my leadership team, I think I got 6 or 8 people on my leadership team, if they're all like me, we'll fail miserably. They're all very different people. They all love to challenge each other. We have some knockdown, drag-out fights once in a while, but nobody takes it personal. And that's how we stay healthy. And I imagine in your group, right, when you're working on things, in some of your teams, not everybody agrees. You don't want them to agree. You want to foster, I'll say, dissent, but you also got to get to a conclusion. Right? That's part of being a team too. So that's my favorite. The other favorite thing was I had the incredible experience of a few weeks ago going up to our Everett, Washington factory where we make the big airplanes, the 747, 777, 787, 767. And going through a tour of that, it's one of those industrial marvels in the United States. I've seen where we make big submarines at Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut. I've seen where we make fighter jets. So working for a company like Boeing, you get to see things that you can't even imagine. The spectrum of cool, technical, hard, challenging things we do that are really important for the consumer, right? If you travel a lot, it's important. It's really important for the government in protecting this country. It's really important for our partners overseas as well in helping them protect and defend their borders. So it's just a cool place to work. And I don't say that as an advertisement for Boeing. I wouldn't be here, I've been there for 29 years, if it didn't offer me kind of a path to success personally, but also we're doing cool stuff.
Do you have to travel a lot?
Yes, I do. I probably travel, this is actually the 2nd week in a row that I've been home. And that's only the first time this year that's happened.
Wow.
So in my particular job, I travel a lot. I'd say most jobs in a company like Boeing don't. And you know, if you like to travel, you can find yourself in a position where you get the opportunity to do that. If you don't like to travel, you can also find jobs that don't do that. Mine, because I'm running a business, and I've got customers in Singapore, in DC, in San Antonio, in Rome, New York. I'm trying to think of where else. Sunnyvale, California. So plenty of opportunity for me to, which you guys are too young to deal with this probably, but it was really hard when I had I just have one son, young kids. But now, once he got into high school, he just wanted food, money, and a car, and leave him alone, right? Those are the requirements. And so once my son got a little bit older, it became a little bit easier. So, and I have a very patient wife also. Other thoughts or questions? Something's burning. Tell them about what you saw. You came over and saw what we're doing.
You want me to actually say it?
Yep. Truth. No, don't varnish it with anything.
Boeing is currently working into getting into the information security business and the information security solutions business. So they are developing, as part of that, a cyber range that you can carry around in a box. And
Now, but the box, just truth be told, is probably maybe a little bit smaller than this podium here. Is that kind of box?
it's got
Not a shoebox.
it's got wheels in it. So it can mimic host machines, it can mimic services, it can mimic actual clients as well. I forgot what the number was, but it was some pretty big number. It can basically hold a mini CCDC exercise with a scoring engine by itself, with the support for physical devices as well. So you can plug in entire subnets and just run entire virtualized subnet on top of that. And you can run some pretty cool exercises on it.
And I didn't even pay him to do that advertisement. But as an I'll give it to the but as an example, right? That scoring engine and the red team, blue teaming we put into that system, that was done by these 6 guys right out of Cal Poly Pomona, who was probably sitting in this room, you know, two and a half years ago. So to say, geez, you got to go to work at a Boeing company, it takes you 10 years to make a contribution. It took these guys about 10 days to make a contribution. Now, that's the kind of impact that you can have on a company. It's huge. I'm sorry, I'm going to get
So I heard you could lend the school one of these things so we can work on it for a year. What if one of us breaks it?
Or melts it, or
Because it's
combusts it.
I know
break
it's
it, you own
like
it.
$22,000, okay? So if there happens to be any accidents,
Well, you know, it's, well, you know, so Boeing, the good news is Boeing's a big company and we are self-insured, right? So I think the actual material cost is, I don't know, $100,000, $200,000. So to me, that's a lot of money. To the Boeing company, I mean, it's kind of a, we're not worried about that. I mean, what are you gonna?
I'm gonna burn it.
She admits she's the
Oh, no, they
You're
haven't.
not allowed in the room.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you know, that's the last thing.
I was ready order against
I was just
rainbows.
wondering if we had to like worry about these kind of things if you wanted to play with them.
You know, if we figure out how to do that, and I hope we do real quick, that is what we're not worried about. That. Stuff happens, right? Yeah.
What was the one, what's probably the worst experience you've ever had with Boeing?
The worst experience? I'll tell you, the worst experience just happened to me last year. I ended up working for somebody that almost caused me to quit the company. Boeing had acquired a small commercial company through a mergers and acquisition process. And I had worked with the company to integrate them into Boeing, but they were a wholly owned subsidiary, which means they weren't Boeing employees. Boeing owned them, but they were still employees of this company. And then my prior boss, she had quit the company, and so they took my business unit and put it under this guy who was a CEO. He'd never worked, our stuff is mostly U.S. government defense kind of programs. We have certain rules and regulations. If you do business with the government, it's called Federal Acquisition Regulation, you gotta follow. He'd never worked in that environment. So he was telling me to do things that might be perfectly fine in a commercial world, but in the government world, literally illegal. And I refused to do it. And so he made my life particularly miserable. And I tell you that story because I'm not proud of how Boeing acted in that capacity in terms of how they dealt with the situation. But I tell you that story because in your working career, you're going to find yourself working for somebody or working with somebody that's not going to be a pleasant experience. And as I reflect on it, at the end of the day, I did what I knew was the right thing to do. And if I just kept doing what I knew was the right thing to do, independent of what this guy was telling me to do that was illegal, it didn't matter. I know I wasn't going to go to the other. He'd tell me things like, well, do it anyway. If anybody has a question, they can just come talk to me. I said, I'll tell you, his name's Greg. I said, Greg, you know, me doing it anyway makes me just as guilty as you. So I'm not going to do it. So the real message is, when you find yourself in a tough situation, do the right thing. Do what you, and you know what the right thing is. He knew what it was too, but he just didn't care. So that was the worst experience I had. And it was only 3 months. So out of 29 years, I'll forget about it in a couple months.
One more question.
One more question? Anyone else? I want to get yours, but anyone else who hadn't had a chance to ask? All right. Oh.
What's the biggest thing that surprised you at the beginning of your career?
The biggest thing is how willing the very experienced, and I've been coached not to say older, right, but how willing the older employees in the company were to work with me. And the one thing that I've noticed now, again, being in the crosshairs, when I bring people like you into the organization, you know what I see happen with the experienced people? They pick up their game. They see you guys come in and just kick butt, right? And they're sitting going, well, wait a minute, these kids are kind of starting to run circles around me. Now, there's still a lot of experience, right, that, you know, that you'll learn, make some mistakes. But by bringing in young people like you, I raise the level of performance of the entire organization because of the energy that you bring. So really, the willingness of very senior people to, I mean, it's almost like, and I sort of start to feel it now, it's almost like you feel that compulsion to share all the lessons that you have with the next generation of employees. We'll make yours the last one.
How often, because I know Boeing's a large company, and so you have like people above you that don't necessarily live anywhere near you? Like they could be in a different state or something?
My boss is in Washington DC.
Yeah. How often do you feel like you don't get the credit you deserve for stuff because your boss is like super far away and doesn't know what the hell you're doing?
So I will tell you that depends on where you are in here, right? This CEO, I mean, nobody's complimenting him. He's looking for Wall Street to compliment him. The stock price compliments him. Down here, it's things that we do like these pride awards or cash awards or team recognition, right? In the middle, you know, my boss isn't telling me every day I did a good job. People below me aren't telling me I do a good job. It's really, I think in here, it's more, what do you get from inside, right? Knowing that you're going to...
Because you get your end of the year like reports
Yep.
of how you performed as well.
So here, okay, it's based more on, you know, maybe what was your software productivity, were you a good employee, you know, what are some of the attributes of the work, the quality of the work that you're doing, the timeliness of your work. As you start to work up here, it gets really simple. Profit and loss. Did you bring business in? Did you make money for the company? Now you still have some leadership attributes, right? You can't be a total jerk, right? You gotta be ethical and all those kinds of things as well. But as you work your way, you know, across this axis here, it gets more dollars and cents. Down here, it's more qualitative and quantitative value. Thank you so much for hosting me. This has been a lot of fun for me, and you've given me actually a few things to think about when I go back to the office.
Thank you, Pierce.
Oh, I do, by the way, so one last thing. So you can also tell sort of the economic conditions in terms of a company that's, you know, trying to constrain its cost. You know, ordinarily, you know, we have lots of really fun giveaways, but as the budgets are constrained, that are all costs. The best I could do for you today, but if you invite me back again, I promise I'll do better. But I have some Boeing pens here. They're actually pretty nice pens, so I welcome you to help yourself to these.
All right, guys. So real quick, again, this Friday is Tech Symposium. Next Tuesday is our last meeting of the quarter.
Where is Tech Symposium?
Tech Symposium is going to be in here, starting at 6. And then e-board, I need to talk to you guys.
Yeah, if you're on your layer 1 and you haven't signed these forms, come sign them.